Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/JoshuaVelas and become a $2 backer today and get early access to the new episodes. I'll be leaving a link in the description down below, but for now, on to today's episode. You're listening to the Augmented Experience podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Joshua Velas. I'm a student, musician, and a gamer at heart. Join me as I sit down every week to talk about all the latest news in the technology, business, and video game world. I hope you guys enjoy.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is Joshua Velas. I'm your host as usual, and obviously welcome back to the show. Today's episode 167 of the show, and before we get started, I'm going to do a bad house cleaning quick because, well, you guys know I like to do it around here, and it only makes sense that we do it, so let's get on with the house cleaning. I do want to say thank you guys for coming back and listening to today's episode. It really does mean a lot to me. You guys constantly keep, making time to listen to these episodes or watch them on YouTube, because I always like giving people options, because I just feel like that's fair, giving options, because I know not everyone likes to sit through and listen to an audio podcast. And there's some people that just don't have the time to sit down and watch a video version of a podcast. So if you give them both, then people get to choose which one they want. So I do greatly appreciate all the support. I greatly appreciate you guys commenting on the YouTube videos, liking them, disliking them. And at the same time, even just downloading and sharing the audio versions, because it all meets the same end goal as you're just helping me out. And I really do appreciate that. I do also want to say thank you guys for helping the show hit, I think it was 2,270 total downloads. So we're about 30 off from hitting 2,300. So hopefully we can hit that, hopefully by the end of the month. And, hopefully the goal is to hit 3,000 by the end of the year, which hopefully we can pull that off. But you guys are great. I love you guys, and I greatly appreciate all you guys, basically everything you guys do, because it's all useful, it's all productive, it's all helpful, and I greatly appreciate it. I also want to say thank you to the Patreon backers, because, well, you guys also support the show, and then you get early access to the episode. So if you want to become a Patreon backer, you can click the links down below, and you can either click the $2 tier to, just donate $2 a month, or you can get the $5 tier and, donate $5 a month, and then you also get early access to the episodes. So you at least get some benefit. But either way, I greatly appreciate the Patreon backers. You guys are great. I greatly appreciate you all. And this has been a very interesting week. Not gonna lie. I would say, I know we're trying to make the house cleaning go quick, but this has really been a very interesting week in terms of my personal life and stuff going on. School has been great. Just breezed through my stats test, got a 97, should have got a 98, but it is what it is. And it's just been a nice week. It's a good way to finally just relax after just doing so much work that needed to be done. And I'm excited to see where this week goes, because I like focusing on one day at a time. But aside from that, let's get on with today's topic, which I will say this, though. With the topic, I've been waiting for this to happen for, I think, since 2017 or around that time frame when the Pixel 2 was out, that I was excited because I was like, well, the Pixel phone, the original one, did well. People liked it. And the Pixel 2 is obviously considered the more iconic because of the panda colors and all the advertising. And I thought, well, this is the perfect time to launch the Pixel Watch. That was not the case. Fast forward at least to 2021, and now we're finally, or at least the rumors and leaks of detailed, specifications and how the watch looks has been posted by Jon Prosser. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Is we're going to be talking about the Pixel Watch and why you should care and why you shouldn't care, because I feel like, yes, while it is a great watch, or in terms of design, there's still some concerns that we need to talk about. And so obviously, if you're watching the video version, I'm going to be posting, in the backdrop, you're going to be seeing a lot of the screenshots that Jon has provided, high res. So hooray, we don't have to deal with anything being low quality around here. But I'm just going to be talking over the pictures and then letting you guys see for your, firsthand what the watch is going to look like. And then also, you guys get to see what it actually looks like. If you haven't seen Jon's coverage of the watch, which I will be posting a link down below so you guys can go watch that original video and hear Jon talk about it. But I do have some differing opinions from Jon. I'm just gonna, let the picture start rolling. But for me, yes, I like that the Pixel Watch is gonna happen. I feel like this should have happened a couple of years ago when the Pixel brand was really at its high point, when it was really hot and people liked it and it was a nice enthusiast brand. I think it made sense to launch the watch a little bit earlier, especially given that, that they want to try to compete in the smartphone space. Having a smartwatch is kind of a good way to go about it because you can build an ecosystem, which, as we've seen, Google has made the Pixel Buds. They have the whole Google Home ecosystem, the Google Chromecast, the Google TV. I think making the smartwatch should have came a lot earlier, but I'm glad that we're finally getting it. But in terms of the design, I really do like the design. I like the fact that it's going with a more circle-ish design, that it's actually a true circle based on the renders that Jon has provided to us, that it actually is a true circle, not just like super, like kind of looks like a circle, but kind of doesn't. You get what I'm saying? Like kind of how the Apple Watch is like a weird square shape, but it's not really a square. And so I appreciate that Google actually is going with a full display, full circle bezel. The fact that it has a little crown on the side, I think that's great. And I do agree that it's a great looking smartwatch. It looks fantastic. It doesn't look like it probably does the most crazy things in terms of hardware features like the Apple Watch does, because we all know the Apple Watch has a lot of features built into it, but a lot of those features took time to develop, and it definitely took how many iterations? Like we're on the 6th iteration of the Apple Watch now. So the fact that Google is putting out their first, this is where I do agree that the design looks cool. And Jon says that he has seen some interesting pictures of the software. That's why the renders try to mimic the software, but they couldn't get it exactly. Like granted, one of them, he said they were pretty close, but the software can't be shown. But based on what Jon saw, because he doesn't want to share like the exact footage that he got from the leaker because of privacy and wants to protect the leaker, which I highly respect. I appreciate that Jon respects his sources and protects them to make sure nothing happens to them. But the fact that Jon was saying that the software is very cool, very innovative, very smooth, buttery, is kind of hopeful, especially given the recent launch of the OnePlus watch, which a lot of people are talking about is a buggy mess. I don't know the validity of these statements. I don't know if it's really true how buggy the watch is. I've yet to see it I personally have yet to see it, so I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm just stating what people are talking about online. But the fact that the Pixel Watch, it's very interesting that this is going to happen, because we know in terms of software, it's going to be very clean. And we know Google is trying to push Wear OS into a new direction, give it a facelift, improve it drastically, because that was kind of the downside. If we're comparing the Samsung watches and the Apple watches to the watches that use Wear OS, yes, Wear OS was the weakest link because hardware just wasn't that good. Battery life wasn't that good. Software is buggy, not as intuitive. And it's still interesting, though, that Samsung had a good formula going, and then they just, we're going back to Wear OS. And I'm like, well, I think it's a good idea because now Samsung can pump a lot of money into it to improve it. But it's just like, But I do appreciate that Google is now going in a better direction with Wear OS to make it more better, because it definitely needs to be better. Like, we cannot just rely on the Apple Watch being the best smartwatch in the space, because yes, I do agree that right now it's the best, but it's only limited to people that have an iPhone. That's the big downside with the Apple Watch, is that a lot of its features are all tied to the iPhone, while a lot of Wear OS watches, you can use them with any phone. You can use them with an iPhone, you can use it with an Android, you can use whatever. And I just think that the fact that Google is doing this is going to be a good step forward for the community, or I would say the tech space in general. Having a new competitor in the smartwatch space, because that's really what it is. Having a new competitor in this space is really important. However, there are concerns with this because, as I mentioned before, this is Google's first try at making their first, proprietary smartwatch. And there are concerns, is like, yes, we've seen, small tidbits of the software working. Granted, we haven't seen these, Jon has, but it's very concerning on some aspects, because how is this thing going to work in terms of actual real world testing and performance, that we have yet to see how this thing actually works in the real world. Granted, it's not ready, so we can't really say that. However, these are concerns that we need to have, because yes, this is Google's first try at a smartwatch. Are there going to be issues? Absolutely. Look at OnePlus. Based on what we're seeing, it was their first try and there was a lot of issues. Samsung's first smartwatch was probably not as good either. There probably was some bugs too. So there's going to be bugs and kinks to work out, and I think a lot of people are used to this. But the main concern that I have is, how is Google going to advertise this watch? Are they going to try to advertise it as an Apple Watch killer or something like that? Because a lot of consumers like the idea of the Apple Watch, because in terms of the Apple ecosystem, yes, it's one of the, I'd say, highlights of the whole ecosystem. It's definitely one of the selling points, drawing points besides the iPad Pros. Like, the fact that the Apple Watch is so good and that it just does so much that a lot of people really like, it's kind of hard to try to sell people another watch. Yes, I do understand the concerns that a lot of Android users have, that they don't think it's fair that the Apple Watch is only limited to the Apple ecosystem, which I agree. I still think that's kind of BS, especially when your competition sells their watches and you can't use them with your device. And I just think that Apple should consider the idea of opening up the Apple Watch to other things. I get it. That can lead to some very tricky things, especially when it comes to, iMessage and things like that, because we know how people feel about iMessage, and allowing it to be a service that can be used on all platforms, like how messages for Android can be used on PC, Windows, because all it is doing is you can download an app. It's a messaging app, and well, you can use it from anything. As long as you have a browser, it'll work. And I just think that we can talk about the whole iMessage debate a little bit later, but this is the concern that some people have, is that the Apple Watch is the bar. The only problem is that bar is only limited to a select type of phone, and a lot of people don't like that. So I think the Pixel Watch being introduced is a good step forward for the Android space specifically, because it allows for people to have, hopefully, a smooth experience with a smartwatch in Android, because that's been a very tough find to, a very tough thing to find. I know the Samsung watches have been great and a lot of people like them, but yeah, the fact that Google is now making their own proprietary watch, is going to get updates, straight from them, just like the Pixel phones, first, always first. I just think it's a very good and interesting move. Do I think it's a little bit too late though? On some aspects, I think yes, but I'd say never say later. Like, it only makes sense that we finally get it, but do I think it's too little too late is the question presented. Because yes, I do firmly believe that this watch should have came out a long time ago. I think it should have came out with the Pixel 2 when the phone was at its peak height, when people really liked the Pixel brand, that everyone really liked it. It was very popular. A lot of people really liked the Pixel 2 XL. I loved my Pixel 2 XL. I was one of my favorite phones I've ever owned in my life, and I just adored that phone. I still think that that was a time that they should have released the watch, or at least the first version of it. And right now we would have had, different variations of it. But it's one of those things where it's going to be interesting to see how the community responds, especially given that, companies like LG are no longer in the game, and now OnePlus is just getting ragged on as people thought they were, which only makes sense that OnePlus was going to get ragged on. It's actually kind of funny though that I put the Pixel phone, or specifically the Pixel Watch news, up against OnePlus, because I was going to talk about with the OnePlus episode that I'm still going to do, that it's a little spoiler ahead, but what I wanted to talk about was how would I frame it? Basically the idea that OnePlus is just going downhill, that I would say talking about the idea of enthusiast brands, and how once they get to a certain point, then people start hating on them because they're like, oh, they betrayed us. And it's like, well, they didn't really betray you. They're still offering value. It's just a much higher price gap, because you're also looking at the market, and whole big fun episode that I'm going to do eventually. But to me, it's just interesting seeing how everyone is so excited about the Pixel Watch, and yet the OnePlus watch just got completely ragged on. And one of them is actually out and about to be used. The other one is just rumors, leaks. So we don't even know if it's still when it will launch. Like, I know Jon has talked about that it will launch this year, later in the year. But same thing with the whole Pixel 5a, 5G, which I think Google is doing some great work with making those A series phones, because they're just doing amazing. Like the 4a was great, the 3a was great. Now the 5a is going to be great too, especially because the Pixel 5 was a really good phone. It really was. I don't have my Pixel 5 anymore. I wish I did. It would have been nice to just have both. But in the end, I still think that this is a very interesting time, if I'm being honest. The fact that now we're getting a Pixel Watch. And it will be interesting to see what Google does. If Google is able to regain a lot of, I'd say, if they can even get a foothold in the US market, because let's be honest, Samsung and Apple pretty much own the US market by a large margin. That's not even funny. And I think it's just going to be interesting that now Google is building up their ecosystem more and more. The fact that now we're getting the watch, we already have headphones. A lot of people really like the Pixel Buds. Not the first one, the second pair. The first pair would just, yeah, we don't talk about that. We pretend that doesn't exist anymore. But to me, it's one of those things where I'm excited to see where Google goes with this. Am I concerned? Absolutely, because yes, I know there's going to be a lot of bugs when this thing launches. I know that in the small sample that Jon has seen, that he said it ran smooth and great. And I'm like, well, that's fine and dandy. That's a controlled environment. When we see the real world performance, I really hope that the watch is good, that it doesn't have any major breaking bugs that just make people want to go, argh. Like, I really hope this watch is really good. That's what I hope. Because I feel like that's what Wear OS needs, is they really need a good watch that just is the face of Wear OS for right now. Because that's what we need. Wear OS needs a face, because it's just like, it's just always viewed as the worst platform for smartwatches. That Tizen for Samsung was much better, and the fact that Wear OS was just always a weak link. And I get it, they've been revamping it. You know, other brands like Fossil have been making very beautiful watches running Wear OS. But it's just one of those things where trying to convince people to use Wear OS when it's still limited, I feel like once Google comes out with the Pixel Watch and shows Wear OS at its cleanest and its most, I'd say, efficient, and just dumping all the nice Google features, because let's be honest, that's kind of the benefit of using the Pixel line, is that you just get all these Google features that are exclusive to the Pixel phone that you can't do anywhere else. And it's a very interesting thing that's going on. Am I excited? Absolutely. I want to see how this watch turns out. And, you know, if I ever get an Android phone again, and if it does good, I might just stick with the Pixel lines and just get a Pixel Watch. Granted, I know I have an iPhone right now and I don't have an Apple Watch, or some people are like, Josh, you should get an Apple Watch. And I'm like, about that, you know, like I don't see myself using the Apple Watch so much. If I'm being genuinely honest, just being 100% honest, I just don't see myself using an Apple Watch so much. You know, like I would say I could get myself the SE, but I'm like, I kind of want the 6 because I like all the health features that it comes on it, and just having having the better Apple Watch is nice. Granted, I haven't measured how big my wrist is, so I probably should. But in the end, it's one of those things where I'm interested to see how Google frames and works all this, because yeah, it's their first try, and I need to keep reiterating this because I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, nothing can go wrong, and something goes wrong, they're like, oh, that's a dog shit. I'm like, well, we told you this was a first try, so what did you expect was going to happen? Did you expect everything to just work out of the box? Think about it. Like, let's put this into a little bit of perspective. The first iPhone was not perfect. Let's be honest here. It was not perfect. Anything could have gone wrong during the presentation. This has been well documented that everyone knows that if Steve Jobs would have screwed up even one thing, it would have been a disaster, like catastrophic level disaster. It would have. And I know some people are going to be like, oh, Josh is just a Pixel shill, supports Google and their privacy mining and shit like that. And I'm like, well, no, I'm going to call Google out on their privacy. I've always stated this, like, I'm not taking sides. I'm not loyal to a brand. Like, I know like somebody posted about that, like in a thing about the show where they're just like, oh, Josh doesn't talk about how Facebook's privacy is so bad. Same thing with Google. And I'm like, no, I've said this multiple times. We all know that Google is dog crap when it comes to privacy, same as Facebook. And I'm going to call them out on it, and I will dog them for it till the day I die. Because that's the whole point of being objective, is you talk about that. Yes, in terms of privacy, they're bad. Let's be honest here. But let's also be honest. If you own a smart device, you have no privacy. Privacy is just a joke at this point. You don't have anything. I know that we're going into a little bit of a rant, but I kind of want to get this off my chest a little bit. But privacy doesn't exist. We've already stated this multiple times, that privacy is a joke. Like, if you own any smart piece of technology, if you basically use the internet, you have no privacy. Your privacy is non-existent. You have none. Everything about you is on the internet, whether you like it or not. It is. And that's just a sad fact that most people don't want to like. Yes, I do agree that Apple was helping, maintain your privacy as much as they can, but let's be honest here, they still have stuff about you. Let's be honest here, people. Like you don't have any privacy. These tech companies have your information whether you like it or not. They do. Now, granted, whatever they do with it, I do agree that that's something Apple is doing to help maintain it, that, hey, what are these companies allowed to do with your info? And I do think that's cool that Apple is like being like, hey, you can decide what you want them to do with it. So if you don't want them even touching your info, you can just say, hey, no. Or, they're not allowed to use your data for like data and stuff like that, or your information to like, generate data and stuff like that. I think that's really cool that Apple's doing that. But I get that this is another concern that's going to be added to the whole Google and, information mining and stuff like that, that having a watch now that's made by Google from like using Google software made directly by Google, that's going to connect to your Google phone, that's going to use your Google, you get what I mean? Like, it's just like bleh. And it's just, in my opinion, it's a tough debate because you're basically deciding like, what do I care about more? There's a reason why Siri isn't the best, because it doesn't really collect data. It's not personalized to you. And compared to the Google Assistant can be very personalized to you. It can give you very detailed responses to things that it knows you like because of patterns and, using your data and, stuff like that. That's why the Google Assistant can be more effective as an assistant, because it's able to actually use your information, your input, and give you actual useful stuff. But that comes at the cost of privacy, because it obviously is invading your privacy a little bit, because it's constantly recording and keeping tabs of what you like and what you don't like. And that's just a trade-off that a lot of people need to realize. But where does this all lead up to? Because I know that we've been rambling on for a little bit, but yes, in terms of the Pixel Watch, I think it's great. I think this is a nice design for a watch. It's a very sexy looking watch, and I'll say that again. It's a very sexy looking watch. Is it the best looking smartwatch ever? I don't know. It's a tough call, I like a lot of the Fossil watches. They look really cool. But at the end of the day, I like that Google is finally getting to this point of making a smartwatch. Do I think it's a little bit late? Yes, but I'm glad we finally got here. But in the end, what do you guys think in the comment section down below? If you're watching the YouTube version, or if you're listening to the audio version, hit me up on my social medias to let me know what you guys think. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. It really was fun talking about this and just, and then a little bit at the end, just going on a rant. But I really enjoy talking to you guys. I really enjoy sharing what's on my mind about these things, because that's kind of the fun point of doing the show, is I get to talk about what is on my mind about all the latest news and technology, business, and the video game industry. And it's just something that I really enjoy. And I'm glad that I get to share this time with you guys. You guys let me be involved in a little bit of your time, because I know time is a very precious thing that we have that you don't want to waste. But I do thank you guys for everything. I thank you guys for downloading and sharing this episode, for liking, disliking. It's all great, guys. I really appreciate it. And yeah, let me know what you guys think. Granted, there will not be a Friday episode, even though, yes, I know that I have a little bit of more downtime. I do want to relax a little bit. I've been very, just on the go with everything with school. So I think having a little bit of an off week is, well, I know we haven't done a Friday episode because school's been, still busy, and it's just going to ramp up more, especially now that we're going to end the semester. But I really do appreciate you guys. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. I know that we're going to eventually get back into the flow of doing Friday episodes again, but I greatly appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for all that you've done. Thank you for all the love and support. I really, really appreciate it. Hope you guys have a wonderful week and weekend. Please be safe, guys. Don't do anything dumb. Like, I know it's easy to do something dumb, but please don't do anything dumb. Try to be safe. Take care of everyone around you. Be mindful and respectful of the people around you, because you just never know, guys. It's always just a good thing to do. Is just common courtesy. Is just be kind, be respectful to everyone, and do what you got to do. That's all I got to say about that. But I hope you guys take care. I love you guys to death. And as always, please be safe, guys. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.
Hey there. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day and listening to today's episode. If you're interested in supporting the show, whether it be financially, clicking the follow button, or just sharing the episode, it all works for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I love you guys to death.